Alright, in this video, we're going to go over questions 16 through 20 of the June 2014 Algebra 1 Regents exam. Okay, so let's start with question 16. So it says, John has 4 more nickels than dimes in his pocket for a total of $1.25. Which equation could be used to determine the number of dimes x in his pocket? Okay, so they've already told us that he has x dimes in his pocket. Okay, and in the beginning they told us that he has 4 more nickels than dimes. Whenever you see the word more, think addition. So here, whatever amount of dimes he has that many plus 4 nickels. So x is the number of dimes he has 4 more nickels than dimes, so he has x plus 4 nickels. Okay, so x is the amount of dimes he has, so in our equation we should see that number associated with 0.10, 10 cents. And he has x plus 4 nickels, so we should see that number or that expression associated with 0.05, 5 cents. Okay, so let's look at our answer choices. So first let's look at answer choices 3 and 4. So here we see this term x times 4. All right, we haven't seen that anywhere else, so that looks like it would be an error, right? We should see instead x plus 4. All right, so x times 4 is out. That shouldn't be there. We didn't calculate that anywhere. It shouldn't be in our expression. Okay, so let's look at options 1 and 2. Again, we said x should be associated with 0.10, 10 cents, because that's the number of dimes he has, and nickels is x plus 4, so that should be associated with 0.05 or 5 cents. So let's look to see if that's true in any of these. So here we see 0.10 and x plus 4. Right? We said x plus 4 should be with 0.05. So this one is wrong, leaving us with 2. And let's just take a look quickly at the actual equation to see what does that equation actually mean. Okay, so we have 0.05 times x plus 4 plus 0.10 times x, which is going to be equal to 1.25. Okay, so what this equation is telling us is the amount of nickels that we have times the value of those nickels plus the amount of dimes that we have times the value of those dimes. If we add those two things up, they should equal to our $1.25. Okay? All right, so let's move on to question 17. So question 17 says, if f of x is equal to 1/3 x plus 9, which statement is always true? So let's take these one by one. Option 1 says f of x is less than 0. That's the same thing as saying negative x is always negative. Okay, so is that true? So pick a number, plug it in, and see if you can find a case, or see if you can plug in a number that will give you a positive f of x. And that's pretty easy to do because the number 1 works perfectly there. If we plug in 1, that's 1/3 plus 9. Positive plus a positive gives us a positive number. If you plug in 0, that also works. Right? If you plug in 0, 1/3 times 0 is 0, and f of x is just plus 9. So this equation is not always negative. Okay, so let's look at option 2. That option is saying that this equation is always positive. Okay, so we know that it's sometimes positive, but is it always positive? Okay, so can we think of a number for x that we can plug in that will give us a negative f of x? Okay, and it's easiest to pick a very big number. So I'm actually going to do negative 300 for x. Right, if I plug in negative 300 for x, what is this equation equal to? Okay, so let's actually check. F of x is equal to 1/3 times negative 300 plus 9. Okay, so what's 1/3 of negative 300? You can plug that into the calculator if you'd like, but it's just negative 100. So it leaves us with negative 100 plus 9 is equal to f of x. Okay, negative 100 plus 9 gives us negative 91. So this is definitely negative. So that means this equation is not always positive. Okay, we've eliminated those first two options. So let's keep going. So option 3 says that when x is negative, then f of x will also always be negative. Okay, is that always true? So is it always true that if I plug in a negative number, this will always be negative? Let's check. Let's try to plug in a negative number where it will give us a positive f of x. And the easiest number to try with that is, let's try actually to plug in -3 and see what that gives us. This is kind of a guess and check process, but you should try to use your intuition to try to see which number you should try to plug in, right? If you plug in a number, another massive number, if you plug in like -3000, of course you're going to get a negative f of x. But if you plug in a very small negative number, do you still get a negative f of x? So let's actually check. Okay, so here we have f of x is equal to 1/3. We said we're using -3 for x plus 9. Okay, so what's 1/3 times -3? Again, you can plug it into the calculator, but this will just give us -1. Everything else comes down, and we get that f of x is actually equal to 8. We've plugged in a negative number, and we got out a positive number. So this does not work, right? I can plug in a negative number and get a positive number out. Okay, so let's just confirm that 4 is correct before we actually go with it. All right, so option 4 says if x is positive, then f of x will also always be positive. Okay, let's see, does that make sense here? Okay, if we plug in a positive number for x, any positive number we plug in, this 1/3 x term will be positive, right? Whatever positive number we plug in there, we'll keep this positive. And this 9 is a positive number too. So we would have a positive number plus a positive number if we plugged in any positive number for x. Okay? A positive plus a positive will always give you another positive number. So that means 4 is correct. If x is positive, then f of x will also always be positive. Okay, let's see number 18. So the Jameson family kept a log of the distance they traveled during a trip as represented by the graph below. Okay, and the question is, during which interval was their average speed the greatest? Okay, so average speed is given to us by the slope of this line. So this question is just basically asking us during which interval is the slope the steepest, or is the slope the greatest? So we can actually check. We can actually calculate the slope between any of these intervals and see which one has the greatest slope. Okay, so let's start with option 1. So that one says the first to the second hour. So that's this interval right here. Let's actually just designate all the intervals. So the second option says second hour to the fourth hour. That's this interval right here. The sixth hour to the eighth hour. That's actually this interval right here. 3, right? Sixth hour to eighth hour. And then the eighth hour to the 10th hour. That's this last interval right here. Okay, and to calculate the slope, it's a very simple equation that you should also try to remember for the exam. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's start. So for interval 1, what is the slope? Okay, so our y2 is 110 minus our y1 is 40. Okay, and that's divided by 2, which is our x2 term, and 1, which is our x1 term. So that's 2 minus 1, so that should give us 70 over 1, and that will be just 70. Okay, so let's look at interval 2. Again, y2 is 180, y1 is 110. So 180 minus 110 over x2 is 4 and x1 is 2, so 4 minus 2, and that will give us 70 divided by 2, which is equal to 35. Okay, so option 2 is out because option 1 is 70, which is greater than 35. All right, let's keep going. So interval 3, our y2 is 350 and our y1 is 230. So it's 250 minus 230 divided by our x2 is 8 and our x1 is 6. So it's divided by 8 minus 6. So that's going to give us what? So 350 minus 230 gives us 120. 8 minus 6 gives us 2, and that should give us 60. again, option 3 is out because 70 in interval 1 is greater. Okay, so let's just check the last interval, interval 4. So again, y2 is 390 and y1 is 350. Divided by x2 is 10 and x1 is 8. So 10 minus 8 is going to be equal to 40 divided by 2, which is 20, and definitely smaller than interval 1. So interval 1 has the greatest average speed, 70 miles per hour. Okay, let's go on to question 19. So Christopher looked at his quiz scores shown below for the first and second semesters of his algebra class. Okay, and here we're given the quiz scores. Which statement about Christopher's performance is correct? Okay. So first, the interquartile range for semester 1 is greater than the interquartile range for semester 2. Okay, so we have to figure out our interquartile range for each of these. So I'm just going to make a little list up here. Okay, so 2, the median score for semester 1 is greater than the median score for semester 2. Okay, so we also have to figure out the medians. Okay. The mean score for semester 2 is greater than the mean score for semester 1. Okay, so it's also comparing means. And then for the third quartile for semester 2 is greater than the third quartile for semester 1. Okay, so we have to calculate the quartile, the first and third quartile anyway, but I'll just make a note here that we have to calculate the third quartile. Okay, so let's start to do that. All right, in order to do these things, we have to put these numbers in order. Okay, starting with the lowest to the highest. So for semester 1, it's 78, 83, 88, 91, and 94. Okay, and for semester 2, I'll write down here, we have 77, 80, 85, 88, 91, 92, and 96. Okay, the medians are just the numbers exactly in the middle. Okay, so for semester 1, the number in the middle is 88. For semester 2, the number in the middle again is 88. Okay, so they have the same median. Okay, so option 2 is comparing the medians, saying that one is greater than the other. They're the same, so that has to be wrong. Okay, so now let's look at these interquartile ranges. So how do we calculate interquartile range? So first we have to calculate the first and third quartile. And let's do that first. So the first quartile, we're just looking basically for the median of the numbers to the left of the median. Okay, so we're just considering these two numbers here, the numbers to the left of the median. We're not taking the median into account when we calculate this. Okay, since there's two numbers here, in order to find the median, we would just have to take the average of those two numbers. So we would do 83 plus 78 divided by 2, which gives us 80.5 is our first quartile here. So I'm going to write 1Q. In order to find the third quartile, we do the same thing, but to the numbers on the right side of the median. So that's these two here. Again, we're not taking the median into account when we calculate the first and third quartiles. Okay, so to calculate the third quartile, we just find the median of the numbers to the right of the median of the whole set. So that in this case, it's the median of 91 and 94. Since there's two numbers there, we take the average of those, and that will be the median. So that's 94 plus 91 divided by 2, which gives us 92.5 is our third quartile for first semester. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for semester 2. We're going to calculate the first quartile first. Okay, so we're just looking at the numbers to the left of the median. Okay, there's three numbers, so there is a number in the middle, and that's 80. 80 is the median of the numbers to the left. Okay, and that's the first quartile. Let's calculate the third quartile now. We're just looking at the numbers to the right of the median. Right, so again, we have a number in the middle, which is 92. So that is our third quartile. So let's calculate the third quartile range for each of these. So in order to calculate the interquartile range, we just subtract third quartile minus first quartile. So if we do that here for semester 1, I'll actually write it down here. For semester 1, the third quartile is 92.5, and the first quartile is 80.5. So we subtract those two numbers and we get 12 is our interquartile range for semester 1. And then for semester 2, we're going to do the same thing. Quartile 3 is 92 and quartile 1 is 80. So 92 minus 80, that gives us 12 again for the interquartile range of semester 2. Okay, so now let's look back at our options. So option 1 says the interquartile range for semester 1 is greater than the interquartile range for semester 2. That's not correct because we have the same interquartile ranges. So 1 is out. Okay, so let's look at option 3. The mean score of semester 2 is greater than the mean score of semester 1. We haven't calculated that yet, and let's see if we don't have to, just to save time. Let's look at option 4. The third quartile for the second semester is greater than the third quartile for the first semester. Okay, what's the third quartile for the second semester? That's right here. It's 92. And what is the third quartile for the first semester? That's here. 92.5. This says the third quartile for semester 2 is greater than the third quartile for semester 1. No, actually the third quartile for semester 1 is greater. So this option 4 is wrong. That means 3 must be the correct option. If you're not sure about this, if you're taking the test and you're not sure, I would recommend you actually calculate the mean for each of these, right? We just add all them up and divide by the number by the amount of numbers in the set. So here would be, to calculate the mean for semester 1, it would be 78 plus 91 plus 88 plus 83 plus 94 divided by 5 because there's 5 numbers in this set. Okay, and you would do the same thing for semester 2 and you would compare those means, but in order to save time, we're just going to say that that is the correct answer because we've proved that the other ones are not correct. Okay, so the correct answer for question 19 is 3. All right, and now let's look at 20. So the graph of y is equal to f of x is shown below. Which point could we use to find f of 2? Okay, so f of 2, we just have to understand the notation here. So f of 2 basically is just saying if I plug in 2 for x, what is my y value going to be? Right, so here we've plugged in, for x we've plugged in 2, and it's asking us what would our y value be. So which point could be used to find f of 2? The point that could be used is the point where x is equal to 2, right? So if this is 0 at the origin, this is 1, and this is 2. So point A would be able to tell us what is the y value, right? And that is f of 2 is what is the y value. Okay, so here the answer would be point A. All right, if you found the video helpful, leave it a like, subscribe for more videos on Algebra Regents and other math and science regions.